came home to find out my mother-in-law was waiting with the police at my driveway, and she made up this story to get me arrested. But she forgot about the CCTV. I 34F never imagined I'd find myself in the back of a police car, watching my mother-in-law's smug face fade into the distance. But there I was, hands cuffed behind my back, trying to make sense of how my ordinary Tuesday had turned into this nightmare. It started when I pulled into my driveway after a long day at work. I immediately noticed something was off. My mother-in-law's car was parked haphazardly near the garage, and 2 police cruisers were blocking the street. My heart started racing as I saw my mother-in-law talking animatedly to a pair of officers. As I stepped out of my car, my mother-in-law's eyes locked onto mine. "That's her," she shrieked, pointing a trembling finger in my direction. "That's the one who attacked me." The officers approached me cautiously, hands hovering near their weapons. "Ma'am, we need you to stay where you are," one of them called out. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I just got home from work. I haven't done anything." But my protests fell on deaf ears. As the officers got closer, I could hear my mother-in-law's voice rising hysterically. "She came at me with a knife. I thought she was going to kill me. I barely escaped with my life." I stood there in shock as the officers patted me down and read me my rights. My mother-in-law watched with a glint of satisfaction in her eyes that made my blood run cold. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. She had planned this. As they led me to the police car, I caught snippets of the story she was spinning. According to her, I had come home early, flown into a rage over some imagined slight, and chased her around the house with a kitchen knife. She claimed to have locked herself in the bathroom and called 911 in fear for her life. It was all lies, of course. I hadn't even seen my mother-in-law in weeks. But as I sat in the back of the police car, watching my neighborhood disappear behind me, I felt a creeping sense of dread. It was her word against mine, and she had always been good at playing the victim. At the police station, I was fingerprinted, photographed, and placed in a holding cell. My mind raced, trying to piece together why my mother-in-law would do this. Sure, we'd had our differences over the years. She never thought I was good enough for her precious son, but this was a whole new level of crazy. Hours passed before I was finally brought in for questioning. The detective assigned to my case, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s, eyed me skeptically as she laid out the charges. Attempted assault with a deadly weapon. It was serious. "I didn't do it," I said, my voice hoarse from holding back tears. "I wasn't even home. I was at work all day. You can check with my boss and my coworkers. There are security cameras at the office." The detective made some notes but didn't seem particularly moved. "Your mother-in-law's statement is pretty detailed," she said, "and there are some cuts on her arms consistent with her story." My heart sank. Of course, my MIL would go that far to sell her lie. "She must have done that to herself," I said, knowing how desperate it sounded. "Please, you have to believe me. I would never." Just then, there was a commotion outside the interrogation room. I heard a familiar voice. My husband. Relief washed over me, followed quickly by a new wave of anxiety. What if he believed his mother's lies? The door burst open, and there he was, looking frantic and disheveled. "I came as soon as I heard," he said, rushing to my side. "Are you okay? What's going on?" Before I could answer, the detective intervened. "Sir, you can't be in here during questioning. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." But my husband stood his ground. "Not until you hear what I have to say," he insisted. "My wife is innocent. I can prove it." The detective raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite herself. "Go on." My husband took a deep breath. "We have security cameras at our house, inside and out. I installed them last month after a string of break-ins in the neighborhood. I checked the footage as soon as I heard what happened. It shows everything." I felt a glimmer of hope for the first time since this ordeal began. In all her scheming, my mother-in-law had forgotten about the cameras. Or maybe she never knew about them in the first place. The detective looked skeptical but agreed to view the footage. We were led to a small room with a computer, where my husband pulled up the video from our home security system. The footage was crystal clear. It showed my mother-in-law arriving at our empty house, letting herself in with a key we didn't know she had. She wandered around for a while, clearly snooping, before settling in the kitchen. Then, in a scene that made my stomach turn, she deliberately cut her own arms with a knife from our butcher block. We watched in horrified silence as she messed up the living room, overturning furniture and scattering papers. She made a show of locking herself in the bathroom, then calmly called 911, her voice dripping with fake terror as she spun her tale of attack. The timestamp on the video proved that all of this had happened while I was still at work. The footage even showed me arriving home, confused and scared, just before the police pulled up. The detective's face was unreadable as she watched the video play out. When it was over, she turned to me with a grim expression. "Ma'am, I owe you an apology," she said. "We'll be dropping all charges immediately." Relief flooded through me, but it was quickly replaced by a churning mix of anger and betrayal. "What about her?" I asked, nodding towards the screen where my mother-in-law's performance was still frozen. She filed a false report. She tried to have me arrested. The detective nodded. We'll be bringing her in for questioning. I can assure you, this won't be taken lightly. As we left the police station, my husband held me close. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I had no idea she would go this far. I should have seen it coming. I leaned into him, too exhausted to respond. Part of me wanted to rage at him for not seeing his mother's true nature sooner, but a larger part was just grateful he had believed in me, that he had thought to check the cameras when everyone else was ready to assume my guilt. The next few days were a blur of legal meetings and family drama. My MIL was arrested for filing a false report and attempted fraud. She tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, that she genuinely believed I had attacked her, but the video evidence was damning. My husband's family was torn apart by the revelation. Some sided with my mother-in-law, claiming she must have been pushed to such extremes by something I had done. Others were horrified by her actions and reached out to offer support. Through it all, my husband stood by me. He cut off contact with his mother, despite her tearful pleas and attempts to manipulate him. You're my family now, he told me. You and our future children. I won't let anyone threaten that, not even my own mother. As the dust settled, we were left to pick up the pieces of our life. We changed our locks, strengthened our home security even further, and started therapy to deal with the trauma of what had happened. Slowly but surely, we began to heal. The incident, as horrible as it was, had brought us closer together. We communicated more openly, set clearer boundaries with family, and appreciated each other in ways we never had before. Months later, as we sat on our porch watching the sunset, my husband turned to me with a serious expression. I've been thinking, he said, maybe we should move. Start fresh somewhere new, away from all these bad memories. I considered it for a moment, looking around at the home we had built together. No, I said finally. This is our home. We've fought for it, literally. I won't let your mother's actions drive us away. He smiled, squeezing my hand. You're right, as always. As we sat there, planning our future, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We had weathered a storm that could have torn us apart, and come out stronger on the other side. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be a trial, more family drama, and plenty of healing left to do. But I knew we could handle it, together. And if there was one silver lining to this whole ordeal, it was this. I never had to worry about surprise visits from my mother-in-law ever again. Sometimes justice comes in unexpected packages, or in our case, in high-definition video footage.